typically what you're going to be doing for your painting takeoff. And then we'll make sure that we're getting those accurate results, looking at, how to perform that takeoff then, and then looking at some of the differences if you're doing the takeoff yourself, or if you're using Takeoff Boost, how you might want to do some things a little differently just to make sure that you're being the most efficient with that, and then reviewing those results. And then we'll talk about a little bit because our next session will be focusing on QuickBid. And so what we're doing in creating these conditions and kind of getting ready for the QuickBid side of things, anything that you might be doing different, making sure that we're getting those results. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to On-Screen Takeoff. So I have a plan here. I'll zoom out just so you can get a better view of the whole thing. And give me a second here. I'm going to switch this so you can see my screen a little better, get my mug off from there. All right, so we have our plan with all the takeoff completed. We're going to go back in and talk about how we created those conditions and how we're getting those results. But looking at the plan, of course, checking, setting, verifying that scale before completing any takeoffs. We got our scale set up there. We have our scale. Let me show that down here in the bottom right. 1/8 inch is a foot. And then that is set, and just verifying that before actually doing any of your takeoff. Now, when you are doing painting takeoff, let's look at what we need to do with some of these walls. So I'm going to open up. And so right now I have PT1. So I got my paint 1 on both sides of the wall. So looking at, that takeoff, I need my results for both sides of that wall. I have, again, my name of the condition. I have the type, so I can have that grouped there over on the left, my types, and then my layer. What do I want to turn it on and off with at the same time? Now, once we look at our dimensions, I have the height set of that wall, and then the results that I'm getting is that surface area both sides. Now, if I am doing all my estimating in On-Screen Takeoff, perfect. I can set that first quantity result as surface area both sides, because that's where I'm going to be pricing it in On-Screen Takeoff. If I want to do that pricing, it has to be on in that quantity 1. If I am using QuickBid, then I'm going to want to leave that quantity 1 as length. I can set the quantity 2 to surface area both sides if I want, but QuickBid is by default going to be looking at that length and then multiplying by the height. But because we are going to talk about how to use attachments to remove square footage of the wall surface area, you may want to, change the way that QuickBid is calculating. We'll talk more about that on the QuickBid side, but we do want to set some of this stuff up now to make sure that that is set up properly. So by default, QuickBid is looking at your length and multiplying by the height to figure out the surface area. We are going to be removing some of the square footage with our attachments if you want to make sure that you have a very precise square footage for your painting. So you may want to change your items in QuickBid to use the surface area instead of the length times the height. So that way you can get that reduced number. If you are pricing right here in On-Screen Takeoff, you're going to use that surface area both sides. It is going to give you that reduced number. You can put that price in quantity 1 if you want. It's really, just dependent on how you want to, if you're doing it in OST or if you're using QuickBid and what you want that to look like. So I'm going to go ahead and with my notes, that's going to be important for QuickBid as well. That is going to tell me what items do I need to add into that condition when I get it into QuickBid, and make sure that I have all the right information added in there. So I've got my 1 coat of primer, my 2 coats of eggshell finish, and then my labor, per coat. So that way I can have my labor on all 3 coats of painting, and making sure that I have all that information added line item by line item within QuickBid. So I'm going to go ahead and Click OK there. And then we're going to look at some of our other items here. And so we have, now we got a window there, and then we also have our same wall right there. Now, this is where we're going to get into that removing square footage from this wall, because if we're painting, we don't want to calculate all that window square footage, all that door square footage. So this is where we need to do, instead of just a count item, we need to do it as an attachment. So when I click on this, that's going to highlight that door. I'm going to open up that door. And so that door is set up as an attachment. I have my shape set. Now, if you're painting and you're not purchasing and installing these doors, left hand, right hand swing, doesn't really matter. All your results, all your calculations are going to be the same. It's really just based on the size. This left hand or right hand really is only dependent on if you need to know that information for something, you know, like I said, for purchasing that door, making sure that you have the right frames and hardware and everything. So in this case, if you're just painting it, really doesn't matter which one you use. Setting the height and the width, obviously pretty important, so that way you get the right size of the door. That is then on the Advanced tab. By default, this box is going to be checked, and this is going to say back out quantities from parent. The parent is the line that we're going to attach it to, or the linear. And so we're going to see that in a minute here. With this door, I can also get some different results. So I have surface area, both with sides. So both sides of the door, I'm getting my results for that surface area, so I can paint both sides of that door. I also have a count. If I needed a trim, I can do perimeter, top and both sides. I can add that in there, so I can calculate, my, whether it's labor for painting or if it's the actual amount of paint that's going to be needed. Up to you, how many results or what results you need from that. One thing with this that says top and both sides, that is one side of the wall. So it's the, all three pieces of trim around that door, but on one side of the wall. If you need both sides, you will need to multiply that number. If you're doing your takeoff and on-screen takeoff, there's not a multiplier that we can do, but in QuickBid, the layers gives you the ability to multiply. So on that multiplier is what you would use to say, both sides of that. So just kind of be aware that this is just one side of the wall, not both sides of the wall. All right. So we've got all of our results for the door. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to look at the results of my wall before we do this. So I've got 22,218 square feet. What I'm going to do, and I'm just going to throw it in here just on a wall, but you're going to watch that number, that 22,218. I'm going to click this into place, and we're going to see that drop down to 22,176 square feet, because it just removed both sides of this wall square footage where that door is being put in place. And so that's why we need to do it as an attachment. If I just do it as a count, it has no impact on that linear condition, and I'm not changing any of those results, not making any adjustments to that. So important to set those up as an attachment and attach it to the linear. Now I'm going to go ahead and delete that. We don't actually need that one there. Now I'm going to click on my window. Let's look at my window. So now this one, I don't need to know the total square footage of the window, but I need to remove it from the wall. So again, this one is set up as an attachment, but I do have perimeter for sides. So that way I can do the trim around my window. Again, same thing I mentioned with the door, that perimeter is one side of the wall. You would need to multiply that by 2 for both sides of the wall if you needed that. And so again, I have my details in the notes, so that way I know what material, what labor I am adding to this in QuickBid. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. We're going to watch that number, 22,218 again. I'm going to click this into place. That drops down to 22,188. So I'm removing that square footage of, from that window removing it from the wall. And so you can see, you know, all of these doors and windows that were put onto, you know, those different walls. Now, just if you haven't done, you know, the actual takeoff, here, let me go ahead and we'll just delete a couple of these walls just to see what that looks like. Go ahead and delete those. And so a couple different ways we can draw that takeoff. I can just click and hold and let go and just draw one at a time. Or I can click and let go. And then when I get to this end of the wall, I'm going to click and let go. And then I'm going to double click at the other end of the wall when I want to finish that out. And then if I needed to put a wall in here, click and hold and let go, or click, 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 and click my way around to put that linear takeoff in place. So we've got our walls, we got our doors in there, and let's go ahead and look at, so I created just some soffit items just so you know how to do it. I don't actually have any soffits on this plan, but let's look at this L soffit. And so this L soffit is, I have the height set at 6 foot because in my notes, it is 4 foot across the bottom and then 2 feet up the side. So that is a total of six linear feet, or 6 feet of height. And then I can get that surface area based on that total measurement. So that's going to be the best way to do that. Same, once we go in here, let's look at the U soffit, just so you can see that same setup of that now. And so that one is going to be a 2 foot by 4 foot by 2 foot. So I have that set to 8 feet because 2 plus 4 plus 2 is 8. So adding up those measurements and then just setting the height to that total amount. So we're going to go ahead and click OK. And I'm just going to, throw this in here, say this is my U soffit over here. And I did have that set to the width, so it looked that 4 feet wide. So that's why that line looks so wide. And I'll just show you that real quick. So that thickness, I did set it to 4 feet. So if you want it to look the right size, make sure to set that thickness so it looks the actual size. Again, got my primer, my finish, my roll, just depending on what results you need and, what material is going to be required for each of those items. All right, I'm going to jump over to a ceiling plan just so we can see what some of the ceiling takeoff looks like. And so looking at here, I've got my paint 1 ceiling. And so this is only taken off on where my drywall ceiling is going to go, and rather than doing you're obviously not going to do where the ACT is. So these are, let me just go ahead and delete one of these, and it's just a quick click and hold and drag that around that room and put that in place. Now if you have an odd shape, then it's a click 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 around that room. So I'm gonna I will just make kind of whatever shape here and double click to finish that out. So some similar to that concept of that U, same thing where you would click your way around and draw that takeoff. And so there you got your 5,271 square feet. If we did need to remove some of the square footage, like if the middle of the room was a little different, I'm going to go ahead and use my backout mode over here on the top right. And let's say, this is a different ceiling, or I'm not painting that portion, click and hold. And that removed that square footage. So utilizing that backout, we can remove that square footage if we don't need that. Now, I'm going to jump over to another page. So we were on that first floor finish plan. I just made a copy of that page, and then I ran Boost on this one. The reason I'm going to do this a little different and talk about kind of the comparison is when you run Boost, there is it doesn't run anything as an attachment. It does everything as a count item. So, and we're not able to reassign the counts to an attachment. So if you have Boost and you have QuickBid, there's a way that you could kind of combine those, the numbers to figure out what that reduced square footage is without having to redo that door takeoff. So we're going to talk a little bit on the OST side, this, today. And then the next session, when we talk about quick bid, we'll look at how you get that reduced number. So with my walls, now Boost is not putting the square footage on there. So I do need to open that condition up, set my height. So those other ones, we said they were 9 feet, and then get my surface area, single side or surface area both sides, just depending on what result you need out of those. And we'll click OK. And so I've got my linear feet and my square feet, but that is not reducing any of my door square footage or my window square footage. So with my door, I'm going to open that up, and we are going to set this to the door shape. Again, whichever left or right hand you want. I'm going to set this width to the 3 feet and the height to 7 feet. And then I'm going to add my surface area, and I'm just going to do the single width side. Now, the reason I'm doing, the single width side, and I could do, both width sides. We could do it either way, just depending on where these doors are occurring. But when we get over to quick bid, we can do a negative layer on an item. And so we could put our paint item on this door. Now, with that, there's a little caveat on making sure that your surface area number is in the same quantity result as your walls. So if you're using quantity 2 for your wall surface area that is going over to quick bid, then you would want to do the same thing here, with your count item. So that way, because you don't want to have to change, or you can't really change the quantity result that it's using. So you need to make sure that surface area is using the same quantity result as everything else that how you're doing that in quick bid. And then this square footage, we could have it as a negative amount. And so it's going to remove all of the square footage from those walls. So we'll look at that when we get over to the quick bid side in our next session. But just kind of making sure that you do have this set up here if you're using Boost to do that initial takeoff for you, so you don't have to go back through and click every one of those doors into place. This is an option that you could utilize with Boost and quick bid. Now, if you don't have quick bid, then you would have to, really would have to do the attachment to get that reduced square footage, or do a little bit of work on the back end. If you're using an Excel spreadsheet, you could do some of the formulas there. Same concept of removing the square footage. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK on that. Just wanted to kind of point out, some of that differences with Boost. Otherwise, drawing the walls, you're going through reassigning to the single side, double-sided wall, so that way you're getting that correct square footage for your different paint items. And then soffits, Boost is not currently recognizing, like the soffits, so you would create those the same as we did here, draw that takeoff. If there are window types, or the window tags, then Boost could get the windows and do that takeoff for you, and then you would be able to use the same concept as what we did with the doors to reduce that number, or you do it as an attachment. You go through and click those into place. So after we go through and do all of that takeoff, we're going to look at our results here in just a second. All right, so I'm going to switch over to my summary tab. And so we have all of our totals here. Now, I do have some bid areas set up. So I have some floor 1, floor 2 set up here. So that is giving me that breakdown. If you need that, make sure to set up those bid areas. And then these are not currently assigned to an area. That was just the Boost takeoff that I had it run and do some of that takeoff. I didn't assign it to a bid area. Now, if we want to do some of the pricing here on the estimate tab, like I mentioned, all of this is based off from quantity 1. So whatever is in quantity 1, we can do material, labor, or sub pricing. And whatever is in any of these 3 columns will multiply by any of these. So looking at my door, if I want to price it off from the square footage of door, then I need to double click and open up that door. And then I can switch these quantity results around. And so I'm going to say both sides and then change this one to count. And then we're going to click OK. And so now what is your price for painting per square foot? So I'm just going to say 50 cents a square foot for material, and we'll say 50 cents a square foot for labor. It's taking that number, multiplying by whatever is in these two columns and giving me my subtotal. And so same thing, let's come down here to my doors. And so these ones are already set to square footage first. So let's say 50 cents and 50 cents. And there we go, taking that, multiplying out. And just any of these, gonna throw some numbers in there. Let's say this one's gonna be 75 cents for labor. Let's say this one's a little more expensive paint. Whatever you need to add in there, that's gonna take that and multiply. Now, with my doors, I could do kind of the same concept as what I did before, or what I mentioned in QuickBid. So I took my square footage of my door and I put a negative 50 cents on that. And so I am just doing a negative amount. So essentially, if I did my doors as a count from Boost, I could do the negative pricing for that square footage, and then just, do my normal takeoff, take my wall. And so this was actually my Boost wall, and say, this one was, 50 cents a square. Oh, that's $50. Let's do 0.5 and 0.5. And so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to remove these numbers here and put this all back to 0. So we're only looking at, all right. So we're looking at our wall. We've got 6,000 linear feet. That's my problem. I need to switch this around. That's looking at linear feet, and we need to look at square feet. So let me go ahead and switch this to surface area. Let's say both sides, and click OK. There we go. Now we're looking at my square footage of wall. So 50 cents a square foot, and then 50 cents for labor. So essentially $1 per square foot. So that's coming out to $109,000. But then I'm removing that price of the square footage from my door. So now my bid total is 103,000. So it's removing that 6,000 from what I had for my wall. So I'm not directly removing the square footage, but I am doing a negative amount from that door square footage to reduce my price. So a way that you can do that in On-Screen Takeoff with your pricing. Now, if you needed a separate, price for the actual door paint, or what you were doing, then there's some options there of, you could do another condition, copy and paste all the takeoff, and put another price on there. So but just trying to give some different options there of how you can get that pricing. And from here we can export or print this spreadsheet. And so looking at all of my pricing there, I can just print it out, or I can export that to an Excel spreadsheet. Go ahead and do my Excel sheet and throw that. So that'll open up there, and that'll put all of this into my Excel spreadsheet that I can go ahead and modify and make some make some changes from there if I need to do any other changes. All right, let me go ahead and close that out. And we'll close that out. So I think that's about all I had planned to cover for today. Don't see any questions coming in just yet, but just a reminder of some of our upcoming events that we have. So we do our Bid Like a Boss every week. So next week is our bid day, a little bit longer event, but that is going to be our full suite of pre-construction tools. So we're going to be looking at bid management, project intelligence, and then On-Screen Takeoff and QuickBid. So another session for On-Screen Takeoff next week if you're interested in that. Then September 17th, we have our best practices with project intelligence, and then we'll be doing another on-screen takeoff and quick bid session in October. And then October 8th is the pre-construction for MEP. And so that's going to be looking at our QuoteSoft duct platform. Then our upcoming YouTube live session. So at the end of September, we'll do our painting estimating. So looking at the quick bid side of this, and then we'll get into the some flooring takeoff and then flooring estimating. Then we do in-person classroom training. Coming up, we have Minneapolis, and we have on-screen takeoff and quick bid, 2 full days per product. We also have PlanSwift that will be there as well. And then in Kansas City, we have QuoteSoft duct and pipe. And then in October, PlanSwift and on-screen takeoff, we have sessions for those coming up as well. Talk to your account manager for more details on purchasing and registering for those. If you have questions, need more support from our team, make sure to reach out to customer success, technical support, or to reach out to the training team. Utilize that how do I in on-screen takeoff on that training menu to submit that ticket for the training team. And then if you have more questions, need more support, we can get scheduled your custom training sessions. Make sure to reach out to our team if you don't know how to get those scheduled. So, but yeah, thank you all for joining, and just remember, construction starts here.